The big story, as we discussed a bit earlier in the program, big story today is the 4.5 million voter swing toward the GOP in the last 4 years, according to data tracking by the New York Times. So these are results adverse to interests here. Of the 30 states that track voter registration by political party, Democrats lost ground to Republicans in every single one of those 30 the last 4 years between 20 and 24. The 4-year swing adds up to 4.5 million voters on the Republican side. Dems lost 2.1. Republicans gained 2.4. Some quick back of the envelope math, that's 4.5. That's a big move. And I think some in the punditocracy on the left are getting a bit jumpy about it, particularly as they look into the abyss of their 2028 prospective aspirants for the party's nomination. They're not loving what they're seeing from the likes of Gavin Newsom. Listen to Morning Joe.
The Democrats are trying to find their footing, and it's quite embarrassing, actually. I mean, Gavin Newsom, have you seen what he's doing online? And say, just take a deep breath. Yep. Don't try to turn the ship 180 degrees and one. They don't know what to do. I have a good idea. Instead of trying to school Donald Trump, talk into the camera about affordability. Talk about making groceries more affordable. Talk about what you're going to do for housing. Talk about what you're doing.
Yeah, although, with due respect, irony abounds. The only worse rebranding job than Gavin Newsom's efforts, maybe outside of Cracker Barrel, is MSNBC's this week. So, I don't know if I take marketing advice from Morning Joe, but this is something that is, it's Bill Maher has done a lot of this. Now you're hearing from Morning Joe finally. Now you're hearing from Fredo Cuomo. He's a little fed up as well because, ultimately what they want is the left to be better at their job so that they're ascendant again and in power. They're not really concerned. Affordability and how you're going to make housing more accessible to young couples. They don't actually care about that. This is all just predicate to say we've changed, we've heeded the warnings, and so put us back in power. That's all this is really about. They're not changing their stripes. They're just changing how they present themselves so that they can try to buffalo people one more time. And speaking of Fredo Cuomo, he was on the Benny Johnson podcast, and he did the whole, this isn't my father's Democratic Party, but it is. And there's tells that Fredo offers right out of the gate.
So my father's battle was against trickle-down economics and Reagan Republicanism, okay? The Democratic Party that he fought for and the Republican Party that he fought against, neither exists anymore. My father's party was take care of the little guy, take care of the little guy, take care of the little guy. Stay out of our bedroom, stay out of my heart. Okay, just do all the government we need, but only the government we need. And we're a secular society. Don't put anything else on me. That's who they were. Republicans at that time were teaching to the top, for the top, about the top. Everybody should see the world through the eyes of the top, and everything else is great because the top has it great. That was the conflict. Now it's the left arguing for a cultural elite. This is how you will talk about people, Benny. This is how you will raise your kids. This is what you will tell them is okay. This is what, you will say and not say. And the Republicans are, this system sucks. All the little people are getting squashed. These elites are killing us. Anti-everything. They flipped in terms of their operative animus and their constituencies out of convenience and time. So my father's party.
Yeah, there's a tell there right out of the gate. The caricature of the Reagan era as being, the country club Republicans looking through the lens of the top, the elites, people like that were going to Yale at the time, like Chris Cuomo. Anyway, when in point of fact, and the fight against trickle down economics, which was a pejorative to describe what? Entrepreneurial capitalism, which Chris Cuomo in this interview goes on to then embrace, except for the socialistic institutions that we all agree are wonderful, like government schooling and entitlement programs. I mean, he's an intellectual mess. But the important takeaway is there's angst there. There's fear about what the party to which they affiliate has become, and the intransigence of what it has become as well. For more on this and other topics, please be joined by Rich Lowry, who's the editor of National Review, of course, also the author of The Case for Nationalism, How It Makes Us Powerful, United, and Free. Rich, thanks for joining us. Appreciate it.
Hey, of course. Thanks for having me.
So I just wanted to get your take on this, because it's always interesting to see, political and philosophical opponents go through these machinations when they feel like they're, adrift, and what you're reading into what you hear from the Morning Joes and the Fredo Cuomos of the world.
Yes, I think on Fredo, you're right. A totally parodic depiction of the Reagan-era Republican Party. But if you say it was a different party, a different Democratic Party, then you're right. And the main thing that was different, not necessarily the economics, although they've gone left on that too, but the cultural insanity wasn't there, right? Mario Cuomo is out on a limb because he was saying we should, it's okay for Catholics to be pro-choice, right?
Yeah, right.
That's widely accepted now. He wasn't saying, guys should compete against girls and women's sports, right? He wasn't saying we should discriminate against white males and all realms of our national life, right? And this is what Scarborough misses. Of course, Democrats should offer positive solutions as they envision them on various issues. But what they have to do is moderate on a few key cultural issues to demonstrate to people they get it, right? They need to say, you know what? I don't like his message necessarily, but thank God the border is finally closed. And I don't know what Joe Biden was thinking, right? They need to say, and actually some have said this, I don't like the message in D.C. either, but cracking down on crime, yeah, it's no one should feel unsafe in that city. While there are federal resources there, let's make the most of them. Kind of Muriel Bowser sort of saying that. And then they need a really compelling, charismatic, distinctive kind of new sort of figure in 2028. So that's a lot they need to fix, and maybe they just need to lose again before they really feel motivated to fix it, like they did in the 80s until they lost 3 times to Reagan in effect, since HW was the successor, and then Bill Clinton came around in 92 and did in that era, in that context, a lot of what I'm just talking about right here.
But, the problem they have, and I know hypocrisy is not a problem for them, but the problem they have in saying, what was Joe Biden thinking about open borders, is that they were running interference for open borders. What were we thinking about to fund police when we were defunding police, or we were rationalizing it, or we were contextualizing it, or we were platforming Nicole Hannah-Jones to tell us that looting is not a crime, it's a symbolic taking for historic injustices. I mean, they were all in on all of that, in those moments. And now there's some political consequences to that they don't particularly like. So they're, sort of wringing their hands, but without any real direction, because they need sort of somebody to come in and figure out a way forward that alleviates everybody from having to be held to account. They're sort of like they're like collectively like Jake Tapper reporting on Biden's cognitive decline, right? I mean, that's what you're seeing here. They're completely twisted up.
It was a bestseller. I think memories are short, and you can just say I changed. And some of the people who will be running in 2028 haven't had a huge national profile to this point, so maybe they don't have an extensive record on that stuff. But it's okay to in American politics say, you know what, I get it now.
Yeah.
People are very forgiving of that.
Yeah, but I mean, you can't say I get it the way that Gavin Newsom is doing it, because you have to actually be somewhat genuinely remorseful, or feel like I got this one wrong and I'm charting a different course. That's not really what the vibe I'm getting from Gavin.
Yeah, you don't have to be sincere, but you need to be within 100 miles of sincerity, at least. And that's not Gavin. Although I hate to say it, I think for his purposes, his idiotic social media posts are working because he just wants to drive up followers, and then when it gets tiresome, I think it's already tiresome, but when it gets tiresome for even his own side 3 months from now, he can stop doing it, and then he's got 1 million more followers or whatever it is.
Well, the other thing I mentioned earlier in the show too is cynically I disagree with Morning Joe that what people are really waiting for is Gavin Newsom to talk about affordable housing. No, I mean in that party, if your eye is set on trying to position yourself among that primary electorate, then you're in a good place if you're just 24/7 decrying Trump as the boogeyman who's going to end democracy, because that's where the energy is in that party.
Yeah, I don't think there's necessarily. I think you can do both of those things, but you can't moderate and play to the left wing base. That's the choice, and this is why I think, going the opposite direction of everything we've just been talking about, I think there's a real opening for AOC. If I were AOC, I'd be really tempted to get in the race because she generates attention, she's charismatic, and she tells the base exactly what it wants to hear. So I would think that if she gets in, that she's going to be near the top of the polls almost instantly, would be my guess.
Well, yeah, that would be a development. Boy, that would be. If you think people on the left would have a real difficult time, I think, talking about Trump's unique speaking style if they want to platform that as their nominee. But I guess with what you're seeing in New York City, it stands to reason.
New York City's not the national Democratic Party, and the reason Biden won in 2020 is there a lot of relatively moderate African American voters in the South. So Mamdani wouldn't win a primary, I don't think, in Georgia, but AOC, I'm not saying she'd win the nomination, but I think she'd be a significant challenger. Just because attention is so important, and some people just get it and others don't. Obviously, Trump is very high, off the charts on the getting it metric, and she's pretty high too.
The 4.5 million vote swing that I mentioned at the outset, per the New York Times, you recently wrote about Trump's pronouncements on mail-in voting and his desire to have paper ballots and to rein in mail-in voting, if not eliminate it altogether. And given that, strategically at present, it may not even make sense just because there's been such an effort put forward by the party, particularly last cycle, to catch up, or the last couple cycles, to catch up with the VBM programs that the left has been running. And the combination of the new infrastructure that's been built to do vote by mail programs and the move in the direction of Republican affiliation, maybe it's best, at least for the moment, to just stand pat.
Yeah, so I think there are a couple things about this. I don't think it's a great idea to have so-called universal mail-in balloting, right? The way they do in some of these Western states. They just mail ballots to every registered voter. They have these live ballots floating around all around the state.
Right.
And very often they don't have very clean voter rolls. So you might be sending them to someone who's moved or someone who's dead. And that's just a bad idea. And if you look at the real voting fraud cases that change the results in elections, they tend to be in primaries, local primaries, so kind of small numbers are involved. But they almost always involve absentee ballots. So I think you want to have them controlled the way Georgia and Florida do. But this practice, I prefer in-person same-day voting myself. But it's here. It's not going away. He doesn't have the power to end it, President Trump. And I guarantee you there are Republican consultants meeting with the president right now saying, sir, I know you hate it, but can you endorse it again the way you did in 2024? Because it's just so tactically important for the reason that if you have running a turnout operation, right, and 3/4 of the people you're trying to turn out vote early or vote by mail, you don't have to worry about them. They're high propensity voters. They're going to vote, and they're off the table. Then you can focus on the low propensity people, right? If no one votes before Election Day, you have this huge universe, including those 3/4 of people who are going to vote anyway, that you have to contact, you have to try to get out. So you're wasting a huge amount of time and effort. So tactically, it's just whether it's a good practice or not, tactically it's really important for a party.
Yeah, I agree with you. I mean, it's almost like talking about gerrymandering. It is not a good practice, but tactically you have to do it until there's a new paradigm that is imposed. Because not just what you're saying is right on the mark in terms of the expense and the resources devoted, rather than banking as many votes as you can early on and socializing people to do that, because it reduces the effort the campaign needs to make for GOTV. But the other thing, too, particularly now, is Trump's not going to be on the ballot anymore. And we have a lot of, Trump-only voters in the Republican ranks that that have been very difficult to turn out when Trump is not on the ballot.
Yeah, that's going to be a really tricky thing. Can you get the kind of national election-like turnout you've gotten with Trump Trump not on the ballot? Now, look, he's not going away. There was some thinking that this time around when he won, he'd be an instant lame duck. He's not going to be a lame duck even when he's out of office. I mean, his sway is going to be so huge in the Republican Party, but he's not actually going to be on the ballot himself. So those marginal voters that heard him, on those podcasts a lot of us hadn't heard of before, who decided to put down the bong and go vote for him, are they turning out for J.D. Vance or whoever else?
So when Trump finishes his presidency, you don't think he's going to live a quiet life with watercolor painting like George W.? No? You don't think so?
I don't think so. Obviously the Republican race will just be for his endorsement. And, J.D. has the inside track on that. And he's proven that he's adept and knows how to do this, because he's done it twice. In that Ohio Senate primary, we got Trump's nod, just made all the difference. And then, of course, getting selected as VP.
Yeah, I mean, just as a quick aside, since you brought it up, I mean, do you see, I mean, maybe, you, through your relationships, you have a better handle on this than I would. Like, do you see, like, Vance and Rubio coming together, or do you see the potentially rivals in a primary?
I think potential rivals. And I think Trump, he likes competition. He likes drama. So even if he, in his mind, is going to select JD no matter what, I don't think he's going to do it early. I think he's going to let it kind of play out and tease it and see how it goes. So I think, but I would doubt, if Trump endorsed JD, sometime in 27, I don't think there'd be a race really.
Yeah.
I'm not sure who would run against him,
right.
But I don't think that's going to happen.
Rich Lowry, the editor of National Review, author of the book, The Case for Nationalism, How It Made Us Powerful, United, and Free. Rich, thanks for joining us. Appreciate it.
Hey, it was a lot of fun. Thanks so much.
And he joins us on the Turnkey.Pro answer line.
There's only one radio show in Chicago talking about today's biggest stories and telling you what they really mean. That show is this one, Chicago's Morning Answer on AM 560, The Answer.
You need a construction company, but who?
Call Crestcom.
A construction company you can trust that shares your Christian and conservative values. For decades,